story today from the book of Ruth is a really unique one. Not only is the book of Ruth one of only two books named after a woman in the Bible, but it's actually the only book in the entire Bible in which God is never named. God is not mentioned in this book, and yet God is present throughout it all because it's about faithfulness. In Hebrew, there's this word chesed. The best way we have to translate it into English is loving kindness. Now, this loving kindness, it's more than that. It is a faithfulness. It is a stick-by-ness. It is being so faithful to someone that you will not abandon them. You will not leave them to themselves. This is what God is like, and this is what we'll see Ruth is like. But Ruth's story actually begins with a man named Elimelech and his wife, Naomi. They were from the land of Judah, but they moved to the land of Moab. And there they had two sons, Mahlon and Chilion. And their sons grew up and they married Moabite women, one who was named Orpah and one who was named Ruth. Now, not long after their marriages, all the men in the family died. And of course, that's tragic and it's sad. But it's also a big deal for these women. They were on their own. You have to remember that in this time, women couldn't own property. They couldn't go to work the way that men could to earn a living. They were destitute. And so Naomi, being a faithful and loving mother-in-law, tells the two young women to go back to their fathers, so their fathers can take care of them and their fathers can hopefully find a way for them to remarry. And Orpah reluctantly goes. Ruth doesn't. She is faithful to her mother-in-law. Ruth knows that if she were to leave Naomi, it's pretty much a death sentence for Naomi. Even with Ruth sticking by her, it's awfully risky that they're going to get by. So Ruth tells Naomi, "Wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Whoever your people are will be my people. And wherever you die, I will die too." She refuses to let Naomi go on her own. And so Ruth and Naomi, they travel back to Judah. And Naomi is not really of an age where she can do a lot of physical labor, but Ruth can. And so she goes out and she gleans in the fields. Back in this time, farmers would always leave the ends of their fields unharvested. So the poor, so the widows, so that anybody who was destitute could come and harvest food. And they had to work for it, but this food was to be theirs. Now, Ruth was working in this field, but she, by herself, was vulnerable. And so the owner of the field, Boaz, was concerned about her and advised her to stick with the other women who were working in the field. He was worried that someone would take advantage of her. Now, Naomi was a smart woman. She didn't have the ability to do a lot of physical labor, but she was very wise. And so she advised her daughter-in-law, advised her in wooing Boaz, and they were successful. Ruth makes a life with Boaz, and in doing so, creates a new life for Naomi. Their faithfulness to one another is what saved them. And it was no small thing. I mean, this was a matter of life and death. They might have died together. But they were both willing to risk it for their love of each other. And I really think the story of Ruth is a story of what the love of God looks like in human form. In fact, Ruth, who is a Moabite, who's not even a Jew, finds her way later in the Bible into the genealogy of Jesus. Her risky sacrifice, her faithfulness, and just unwillingness to let somebody else go, no matter the cost, was not unlike her great, 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 super great grandson, Jesus. Though we definitely will see it when we hear the stories of Jesus, we still see it in all of these stories of the Old Testament of God's love and care, God's steadfastness and faithfulness, God's chesed for God's people.